Welcome back. President Trump right now in Turkey for day 2 of the NATO summit. Secretary General Mark Rutte warning that the alliance cannot be naive about China as the nation ramps up its military. Beijing says it recently launched ballistic missiles from a nuclear-powered submarine into the Pacific Ocean on Monday. Joining me now is Michigan Congressman John Moolenaar. He is the chairman of the House Select Committee on China. Mr. Chairman, great to see you this morning. Thanks so much for being here.
Hey, great to see you.
I guess we have to start with the developments on Iran, where President Trump this morning said that the ceasefire is over. We know that China has been complicit and has been supporting Iran's efforts. Your reaction to what we saw out of China this week?
Well, first of all, they are a threat militarily, economically, human rights. And we've seen them enabling Iran, enabling Russia. And when they are testing these missiles, we have to recognize these will be used for offensive capacity. And, these are nuclear-capable missiles that they're firing. Their goal is to have 1,000 nuclear warheads by 2030. And there's really no window that we see into their nuclear program. And so this is something we need to be cognizant of. President Trump is very well aware, and I'm sure this will be discussed when Xi Jinping comes to the United States for a meeting.
Yeah, and I really want to get into the China angle here specifically because the tactics that the CCP uses to undermine the United States are far and deep. There's a story in the Financial Times this morning of the death of a prominent Chinese economist. That economist openly questioned official GDP data. It's prompted an outpouring of mourning for a figure many saw as a daring truth teller, and now he's dead in a country intolerant of independent voices. Your reaction?
Well, this is definitely the work of the CCP. We know they are threatened by any opinions or views that don't match their ideology. That's why religious freedom is such a threat. That's why they're trying to control religion, freedom of speech through their national security laws, as well as their new ethnic laws, where they're going to synthesize the religion in the region. And we know that they're against anything that has any threat to the regime. And truthfully, speaking the truth is a threat to the regime. Believing in God is a threat to the regime. And so we see they're becoming more authoritarian and cracking down on these freedoms that we as Americans enjoy every day.
Yeah, great point. There's also a weird story around Kentucky Senator Mitch McConnell. He's been in the hospital for more than 3 weeks following a medical emergency. But his wife, former Transportation Secretary Elaine Chao, went to China 3 days after her husband was rushed to the hospital. She says it was for philanthropic endeavors, saying her husband's health was not grave enough to cancel her plans. But people are questioning why it is that Elaine Chao, 3 days after Mitch McConnell is hospitalized, goes to China and meets with the vice president of China.
I think these are all very legitimate concerns. The Chao family has business interests in China. We know there's really no separation between the CCP's role in business and other parts of the economy, the civil-military fusion. And so I think American people deserve answers on this. I certainly won't question, the situation involving the senator's health. But these kinds of ties, one of the things China does is something called elite capture, where they have business leaders, political leaders, and others, and they aggressively recruit and try and win them over to the CCP's point of view. And this is a threat to our national security when people buy into the CCP's political ideology and public relations efforts.
By the way, John Thune, the leading Republican in the Senate, said that he spoke with Mitch McConnell amid these rumors that the senator is not doing well. And he and others in the Senate said that they spoke with him and actually had a conversation with McConnell. They said they had a lengthy and substantive conversation that covered a variety of topics, including national security. I guess the question really is around Elaine Chao traveling to Beijing to speak with the vice president. Is the CCP wanting to ensure that their hooks are firmly in America, even with Mitch McConnell under the weather?
Well, my understanding is there are deep family ties, and the McConnells have been partnering with China for many years on different endeavors. Quite frankly, the United States was partnering in businesses and academic partnerships, but we have to recognize the direction that Xi Jinping is going. These partnerships are only benefiting China and their public relations initiatives, and we need to be mindful and discerning about these relationships. And my hope is that Elaine Chao will speak to the press and the American people about what she was doing there and clear this up.
At the same time, China is extending its U.S. soybean buying. We've got a report from this morning, Bloomberg, which is reporting that China has purchased more U.S. soybeans, extending a wave of buying as agricultural trade between the world's two largest economies gathers steam. These reports show a state-owned trading firm booked at least another 5 cargoes overnight for loading, mainly between September and October. And the takeaways by Bloomberg is that China is, in fact, keeping the promise, buying more agricultural goods. I want to get your take on this because this was an issue in terms of soybean purchases that President Trump persisted and asked of Xi Jinping when he was in Beijing recently. This pickup in trade comes after the summit held between Trump and Xi Jinping back in May. Do you believe that China is keeping its promises here?
Well, I think that's a good indication, and I give President Trump credit. He set out clear expectations and following up on those. And prior to his next meeting, I'm sure he will follow up and say, how did they keep their commitments with respect to fentanyl, with respect to soybean and agricultural purposes? We know that they retaliate against the agricultural community in the United States whenever they don't like something politically. So the key here is hold them accountable, make sure that we verify that they're doing what they say they're doing, and then hold them to account for it.
Yeah. U.S. soybeans currently incur an additional 10% tariff compared to rivals. But the White House said that China agreed to purchase at least $17 billion in U.S. agricultural products, in addition to at least 25 million tons of soybeans. So we'll watch that. But, Congressman, you recently shared an op-ed on the need to keep the status quo on Taiwan. You wrote, China's aggression toward Taiwan has increased, and President Xi's mandate to the People's Liberation Army requires China's military be prepared by 2027 to take Taiwan by sheer military force. Are you expecting that China goes into Taiwan by 27? And what do you see as the impact? Tell us about the work you're doing in the China Select Committee on Taiwan.
Well, for one, I think this is Xi Jinping sending a message that says we believe Taiwan belongs to us, and we are going to bring them under our control by force if necessary. That is a threat to the entire global economy. If he does that, it would cause a worldwide depression. There's $10 trillion of estimates that would cost the world. And so it would be a terrible thing if he upsets the order in the Taiwan Straits. We support the continuity of a peaceful region throughout, and Xi Jinping is threatening that. He's trying to make the case that the CCP should have some kind of control there, but they have actually never governed Taiwan. And so my hope is that the president will continue to hold firm. We can recognize China for the country that it is, but we want to make sure that there's a status quo across the Taiwan Strait that benefits the entire world. And I hope that the European nations and others will value this as a peace in the Indo-Pacific.
Really important work you're doing, Congressman. We're watching it closely. Thanks so much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
All right, John Moolenaar joining us this morning.